Next question. This is the one that ties into our current series. We've been talking about the nature of love, what love is, what love's not. We've been basing it on 1 Corinthians chapter 13. And, of course, how Jesus defined love. And I can see that the person who wrote this question, they're having a little bit of a conflict in this. And that's a good thing. It's actually a good thing. Here's the question. I am struggling to love someone who is evil. How do I love everyone always and not be a hypocrite when it comes to this person? Now, obviously, you're trying to take Jesus seriously because Jesus was probably the first one to say, love your enemies, not just those who do good to you. Everybody does that. Everybody loves the people that love them, but my community is different. We love our enemies. We pray for those who persecute us. In the face of evil, we still love. So I get that you're struggling with that. Doesn't mean it's easy. So let's talk about how does this take place?
Enemy love. We want to talk specifically about enemy love, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so. One thought I had as I read the question is, I want to love someone who is evil. I was going to say probably if you maintain that posture towards this person, it's actually going to make it harder. Mm-hmm. Instead of seeing this person inherently as evil, trying to see them as a person loved by God, one for whom Christ died, who is currently doing evil. Mm-hmm. That's a separation, and that may be controversial. I don't know, but I think there's an importance in making that distinction.
Well, I think so. I think Jesus makes that clear that there's a difference between judgment and discernment. That judgment is in Jesus's vernacular is the same as condemnation, whereas discernment is a form of wisdom. So Jesus says, there's a way that I can judge, right? I
can look at what you do and see that it's wrong.
Yeah, well, and I'm judging anything. I'm judging this is good, this is bad. I can see that's wise, that's foolish, which I would say is most often the classical biblical way of defining things. This behavior is wise or it's foolish. There's occasionally times where things are referred to as just evil, but I can look at this behavior and say that's wise behavior, that's foolish behavior, and I'm judging it in that form. But there's a difference when I judge you as unworthy of love, as no longer really made in the image of God, as being a person who, and maybe evil, I don't know what word you might use, but just vile, just somebody who is beneath me because of your behavior. That Jesus is saying there has to be a way that I can look, which is why he says, and he talks about judgment. He says, first you deal with your own sin, because take the plank out of your own eye before you take the speck out of your brother's eye. What he's really saying is, in your own life, you do separate your behavior and who you are as a person. Sure. You do say, I know I did that, and you even use phrases like this.
But still a good person.
Yeah, and that wasn't really me.
Right.
That wasn't really me. You are separating out. I'm worthy of being loved. You should forgive me, even though I've done this thing. But we tend to not do that with other people. So first, I need to look at my own behavior. But then I do go to this other person. I can speak to them about their behavior. And I think that's a good point. I can separate out this person's behavior and call it what it is. It's evil and it's vile. Yeah. Depending on what it is, this is evil and vile behavior, but you're loved by God. Mm-hmm. But I do think loving people who are in different kinds of behavior looks differently. And I know all of us have probably even taught this before, but I know it's Henry Cloud and John Townsend. But I know John Townsend writes about a lot that in the biblical categories, there's really three people. There's wise people, there's foolish people, and there's evil people. And each person, in order to love them properly, because it's not loving to a person who's in evil behavior to just keep going, okay, whatever, doesn't matter, keep doing what you're doing, you'll be fine, you do you. That's not love. And so maybe we could talk about that for a minute. What's the difference between those three? How do I know when a person's evil?
It's important right here to define love.
I think that's important. Also, the end of their question is they don't want to feel like a hypocrite. So I think we also have to define hypocrisy is not me going against what I feel. It's going against what I believe.
Yeah.
And the very fact that you want to love this person is a fulfillment of your belief. You know that you should. So the fact that you are struggling to love a person that has done bad things, evil things, I don't really see a reason to say, because I don't know your situation, if somebody's abusing you, I think that's evil.
Yeah.
But the command is still for me to love them. So that gets to, we've got to define love.
Define love, yeah.
But even after I define it and I figure out to do it, it's not going to change how I feel. Mm-mm. So I always say to people, most Christians I know, if I said to them, do you love your enemy? They go, I don't have any enemies. Because in their mind, they think if I had an enemy and I loved them, they wouldn't be an enemy anymore, because they define love into we'd suddenly be all good and everything. My love has power to heal all things, to bridge all things. But, Jesus loved the people who killed him. So did the apostles. They prayed for them actively. And all that Jesus asked me to do with enemies is I'm to pray for them. I'm to bless them. I'm to try to actively do the good that I can do for them. He didn't ask me to change how I feel.
Well, and I think that gets to what love ultimately is, which is the best definition I've ever heard is it's to will the good of another.
Right.
Which, and when I taught students, the way I said, will ultimately is what I'm wanting and what I'm working for. What I'm willing to want, what I'm willing to work for, that I do want what's best for you. And as every parent knows, there are times that what's good for you and what's best for you isn't what's fun for you, or isn't what's enjoyable for you, or may even hurt you yet not harm you. That it may cause a little bit of pain, that when I put a consequence in your life, you may feel a little bit of hurt, but the difference between hurt and harm is hurt stings, right? And harm does damage, and love never does damage. Yeah. Love never does damage, but it may cause, in the case of an evil person, that when I put a consequence, they may get hurt, and they may even say to you, but this hurts, it hurts me the way you're treating me. That doesn't mean that you're not necessarily loving them. If my intention and my goal is, right, I want what's best for you. Yeah. But if my goal is, because you've hurt me, I want to hurt you back, now we got a different deal.
Yeah. And I see a lot of that in the way we talk about people these days, the way our rhetoric is surrounding the people that we disagree with, particularly right now in our political divide. It is so, I think, so easy. And I'll speak straight to Christians, because the Bible says that's what I'm supposed to do. I'm not supposed to judge those outside the church. Right. I'm supposed to look at those inside. Those of us inside the church, I find it so easy these days for many of my brothers and sisters to take hold of the group or the people or the person with whom I disagree with politically, somehow turn them into that they're an evil person. And so now I've turned them into an entity, and I have to fight against that. I have to put that down. That's evil, so I'm going to fight against it. And then I've actually turned non-love into a noble pursuit. I am crusading against something that is evil. And so what it does is we kind of come in the back door and we go around Jesus' command for enemy love. Now I've somehow justified the ability to work not for the good of those that I deem who are evil. And so now I've actually done an end around Jesus's command, and I think it's killing us in the culture. I think it's killing us spiritually. So that's why I think all of that stuff is so important for us to face it. It's not easy. It's challenging what Jesus has asked us to do, but it's necessary,
If you're not challenged by the command to love your enemies, it means you're not really taking it seriously.
That's right.
So one of the best illustrations I've had on that is this dichotomy, or not dichotomy because that'd be two, this thing of wise, foolish, and evil people, that it helps me to know what does love for my enemy or someone who's wronged me look like in different situations. And
it's really good. I know the way Townsend and Cloud teach that is you really need to get clear. It's me dealing with everybody.
Yeah.
Of if this is a wise person, and the way you always figure any of these out is by how, if I share wisdom with a wise person, it helps the wise person. They get better. They take the wisdom, they apply it to their life, and things get better. If I share wisdom with a foolish person, by their foolishness, they can't apply it. But they're not actively trying to not apply it. They're just foolish. They don't know. It's like pearls to swine. I'm just taking something, I'm throwing, it doesn't mean anything to them. It doesn't mean anything at all to them. But And all of that teaching by Townsend and Cloud comes out of the book of Proverbs.
Mm-hmm.
In Proverbs, the evil person is the person who takes my wisdom and actively uses it against me
Right.
to divide me and other people from each other, to attack what God cares about. In fact, that whole list of the things that God hates all grow out of that. Those are things that evil does. It takes wisdom and it uses it against the wise person.
And so the way you figure out when I'm dealing with somebody who's wronged me is, are they wise? Because wise people make mistakes. It's not about
That's
making
right.
mistakes. A wise person is you give them the advice or you tell them. So let's just talk in this case. My guess is if you're calling them evil, they've done something to hurt you. That's my guess. They've made a mistake. They've done something that's hurt you. They hurt you. A wise person, you come to them and you go, hey, that hurts. I don't like that. Can you stop? And they go, oh, I didn't know. I didn't know, which may actually be the case sometimes. There are people I've called evil, I've
yeah.
never confronted.
That's right.
Then I say, hey, I think you didn't know you were hurting me, which is always the way I would go about it. You must not known, because I believe the best about
Love
you. which-
believes the best. We're going to talk about that in a couple of weeks.
Right. I believe that you love me and you wouldn't want to hurt me, so let me tell you. And they say, okay, I don't know. And then the next time they have an opportunity to do it, or the next time, they don't ever do it again, right? A foolish person, you tell them, they say, oh, I didn't know, I'm sorry. But then they do it again. Here's how you know if the difference between whether they're foolish or wise. You put a consequence in place. You say, because you, and I don't know what it is, that's specific to whatever it is, but let's say it's someone, they keep saying something. Your consequence is, hey, when you say that, I'm going to walk away from the conversation. I'm going to be done. And if they then, once they have a little bit of pain, because this is the difference between hurt and harm, the fool has to get a little slap on the hand sometimes and go, ooh, because I've been a fool most of my life. Sometimes it took the little slap on the hand for me to realize I shouldn't do that. You telling me wasn't enough, right? But then there's an evil person, which is once I tell you and I put the consequences don't stop evil people. Evil people like walls. They like to climb over the wall. That makes it a little more fun when I get to break your rule. And like you said, I get to use it now against you. And no matter how many consequences you put, I keep wanting to go at you. At that point, it's important for you to distance yourself from that person. Doesn't mean you don't love them. And we had just a couple weeks ago, we talked about the difference between forgiveness and reconciliation. This is a place where you're not ready to reconcile with this person. You got to put some distance. We can't hang out anymore. I'm not going to answer your text. I'm going to block you on Facebook if you keep coming at me like this.
But at least in terms of what Jesus has to say, which he takes all that teaching from Proverbs, he knows all of that. And he says, now, I want you to love your enemies. I do put distance. There are his consequences. I don't allow them to actively hurt me, but I do pray for them.
Yes.
I ask for God's
Yes.
best to happen in their life, because what would be best for them is for them to realize what's going on.
Yes.
I don't have to pray that, oh, God, make them come to the wisdom of their ways and all that. I just say, hey, God, bless this person.
Bless
Would you bring your best into their life? Would you help them? I do what I could if I have an opportunity to do good to them, because that's salt and light in their life.
And it is not hypocritical to do that and not feel like it.
No, and to still be leery of them, to be a little
Yeah.
concerned about it, to do it in such a way that you don't get hurt, but it's obedient to do it and still label them as an enemy. I think it's so disingenuous in our world for Christians to act like I love everybody, and therefore everybody loves me.
Well, and
I don't have any enemies. It's only because we live in a place where nobody's actively trying to kill us.
Yeah.
But
Well-
see, if they were trying to kill me,
You'd know.
I would still also have to love them.
That's right.
Well, and I think Jesus, once again, the cross is always the greatest example of love. And Jesus on the cross, and I would just encourage you to pray this. I pray this regularly, which is, Father, forgive them. They don't know what they do. And what I find so interesting about that is Jesus is on the cross. He's being killed by Roman executioners that are really good at what they do. And Jesus says, they don't know what they're doing. Well, clearly they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
They know what they're doing. What Jesus is actually doing is he is seeing something we can't see. And he goes, something has happened to this person This Roman executioner, he wasn't born as a little baby and they said, oh man, I hope they strip people naked and nail them up to things and kill them. That was not God's intention when he created this baby. Something happened to this person that they go, the best way to deal with problems in the world is you kill them.
Yeah.
You kill the problems. And Jesus goes, he can see the soul and the image of God in this person has become so corrupted, and it breaks his heart. And he just prays, Father, forgive them. If they understood what was happening to them when they did this, they'd stop, but they can't see it. And then I could look at the person who has hurt me maybe from a distance, and I go, God, I hope one day they see what they've done so that they can be better, and that the image of God goes forward, that I can be angry. And this is when Jesus says, don't even be angry with a brother. He didn't say, don't be angry about what they did. I can be angry and go, no one should treat me like this. No one should be treated like this. But there's something that's happened to them that they would treat a person like this. And so I'm not angry at them or with them. I'm angry with this thing that has happened that should have never happened. Anger is important when I've been wronged because it allows me to resolve the wrong that's been done. But like you were talking about earlier, just outright laying, well, because this person's evil now, they're less, and I don't have to love them is not the
The
intention.
good thing is if I can get it clearly in my mind. If somebody asks me who's an enemy, there are a couple of people right now I know actively work against me. And I don't really think they have a reason. Now
They probably think they do.
well, obviously, obviously they do, and I think I've tried to work it out. Obviously, they think I haven't, but I pray for them regularly. The good news for that for me is my heart is open to them. That if there's a chance we can move from enemy to neighbor, where I can actively do good for them, even though we might not be friends yet.
Yeah.
I want to do that. And then if we can get to that point, I could move to the next level. And maybe my love for them, my love has been the same, but our closeness could change. But if I operate in this unreal world of it's only love if I feel it all the time, I won't do what love requires of me. That opens me up to the possibility of fixing that. I'll just walk away from people. I'll just be done with people. And I'll call myself still loving. And believe me, I have done that in spades in my life. I'm just tired. I'm just not going to do it anymore.
So hopefully that helps this person maybe to do that. I hope so. So hopefully that answered it. If you need follow-up, let us know.
Yeah, Jesus is right about everything, including loving your enemy.
Yes.
And if you actively do it, even if you don't feel it, you are not a hypocrite. You are, in fact, a more faithful believer.
Yep. So hang in there.